More than 20 groups, ranging from the Oklahoma AFL-CIO to the Oklahoma Industrial Development Council, met to show their support for State Question 558. 558 would implement a $25 million water development fund. The fund would help local governmental entities to secure bond financing for water and sewerage projects. These people say passage of 558 is critical to the economic well-being of Oklahoma.
It does not raise taxes. The $25 million has already been set aside out of the growth of previous appropriated dollars available to the legislature. It does not have anything to do with transfer. It does give the state the authority to assist local water districts, local communities in an effort to solve their water problems.
It says nothing about raising taxes, but it also provides that they shall make arrangements for securing and payment of bonds. Now, the only way to do that is by taxes.
So as a consequence, you think it's going to throw the budget out of whack?
It'll throw the budget out of whack, and there's no limit to it.
So on November 2nd, Oklahomans will have to decide whether 558 is the way to face the water problem or whether it would just drain the state's treasury. Bill Ross, Action 4.
The controversy started in the last legislative session when Republican Representative Mike Fair authored a bill that would have restructured the campaign contribution laws. As it stands now, a candidate is allowed to pocket all excess money left over from a campaign drive. According to Fair, that's wrong. The bill was killed by Senate Pro Tem Marvin York. Fair now claims York stands to gain personally because of his actions.
The fact of the matter is that right now the man could profit and stands to profit $40,000 because he killed a legislation that would have reformed this particular law.
But, according to Marvin York, all of his excess money from a campaign is used only for official purposes. In addition, he claims to be in favor of a new law concerning campaign contributions, but still, he could not support the bill authored by Fair.
Problem was that that bill came over so poorly worded, it was ambiguous, it was vague, it was totally unenforceable according to the staff attorneys in my office. So the Senate proceeded to rewrite the bill to make the bill more specific and to make it one that could be followed. We passed the bill, sent it back to the House, and Mike Fair, as he is inclined to do, was persuaded by the lobbyists, the big money lobbyists, to change that bill. They didn't like that bill the way it was, and so they proceeded to rewrite the bill the way the lobbyists wanted it. And Mike Fair came over and said, now, you're either going to pass this bill this way, or I'm going to make a big political issue out of this in the next upcoming elections.
Fair plans to reintroduce his contribution reform measure in the next legislative session, but until it's reworded to the pro tem's liking, it stands a slim chance to pass. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
The Oklahoma Poison Control Center has been busy over the last few weeks answering questions for panicked consumers afraid to buy their old standby products. The first series of Tylenol killings shocked the nation. Then an equally shocking event, copycat poisonings and several other over-the-counter products. What's triggering these senseless injuries and deaths? Oklahoma City psychologist Bill Bixler says there are a number of reasons for the mimic poisonings.
It's very possible that these kind of people who are mimicking are very angry, frustrated people for whatever reasons, circumstances, job, family, persons and places and situations have made them very angry and filled with rage.
Does mass exposure have anything to do with these copycat killings?
They see the evening news, national news. They read the papers and all the publicity that this individual, as yet unknown in Chicago, is getting, and then they can tell themselves, hey, I can do that. It's easy.
Although most Americans have faith in the system, faith that the new tamper-resistant packages will work, Bixler says there will remain a major psychological effect on the buying public.
We believe that when we go to the store and we buy food and other kind of things, that we're not going to die from it. But that's now not the case. People are going and they're dying because they're picking up these things and taking what is presumed to be safe.
How long will the poisonings last? That's anybody's guess. Many psychologists say it's just a passing fad, a very distorted and deadly fad. Dan Slocum, Action 4. The Friday before Halloween in Seminole, Oklahoma. It's business as usual in Mrs. Childress's fourth grade class, but tomorrow night these students will turn into goblins, ghosts, and witches as they haunt the streets in search of goodies. There's a dark cloud hanging over this year's candy search, though. Even in the small town of Seminole, there's an emphasis on safety, especially this year.
Yes, my parents told me to only go trick-or-treating at the houses that I knew the people lived in.
To let them check it before I eat it. Be careful because they put poison in it and stuff.
Residents of this quiet Seminole neighborhood are worried that this Halloween might be a strange one. Many of the parents here will take their children off the streets tomorrow night and take them to a carnival or party. Some just don't even like the thought of Halloween this year.
It scares me, a lot. And if someone could do that and put it on the shelf, can you imagine what they're going to do to the candy and stuff that's around, or anything for that matter? I don't like Halloween. It just gives me the creeps.
Seminole authorities told us it will be a routine Halloween for police, and if parents police their children's goodies, it will be routine for the kids as well. Dan Slocum, Action 4 in Seminole.
During the primary election, 540,000 voters came to the polls out of 1.5 million Oklahomans registered to vote. But on September 21st, a record 760,000 came out to vote during the runoff because the issue of parimutuel horse racing was on the ballot. That issue, now that it passed, may have an effect on the general election. Election Board Secretary Lee Slater explains.
The issue to be decided Tuesday is perhaps just as relevant to that whole question because we're going to be electing a governor who will appoint the racing commission for the implementation of the parimutuel horse racing in Oklahoma. Certainly there are other offices in the legislature that are just as important to shaping the laws that will govern that question and others. There's every reason for Oklahomans to go to the polls Tuesday.
Meantime, no matter what the voter turnout, rooms like this one will be full Tuesday night of campaign supporters coming in to see how their candidates are doing on the returns. Speaking of returns, I'll be covering Governor Nigh and Democratic candidate for the Attorney General Mike Turpin. We'll have reporters at various watch parties throughout the state, and our election coverage will start at 5 o'clock. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the Hilton Inn West.
We feel that the state legislature appropriated some money for the program, and this has brought some of the students back in the paid category because the state money allowed the schools not to raise prices in most cases. So we feel that that is going to help bring back several of these youngsters.
The commotion in the lunchroom this school year isn't over higher prices. In most of Oklahoma's 600 schools, lunch prices have not increased over last year, but there has been an increase in the number of students buying hot meals. After a drastic drop last year, the lunch program has picked up an additional 7,000 students during the first 2 months of this school year. 60% of all students enrolled now buy hot lunches. That's an increase of 4% over the same time last year. The biggest increase in the lunch program has been in the number of free lunches. 10% more students receive free meals than during the same time last year. 1% fewer students pay a reduced price for their lunch, and there's been an increase of 1% in the number of students who pay full price for their lunch. Fred Jones, director of the lunch program, says more students are able to buy hot meals because of state funding.
We feel that the state legislature appropriated some money for the program, and this has brought some of the students back in the paid category because the state money allowed the schools not to raise prices in most cases. So we feel that that is going to help bring back several of these youngsters.
Jones says the lunch program still serves 19,000 fewer students than 2 years ago, but he says more students are switching from brown bagging to a hot lunch. Debbie Mash, Action 4.
Then we'll put them right back in their same area where they can wait for the reading.
Chalk 3, move the alert hold and area hold, move chalk 3 up to the X gate.
Well, this is to test our wartime tasking to move rather large numbers of troops and Army equipment through Tinker on their way to destinations overseas. We anticipate in this particular exercise handling about 600 troops and about 1,400 tons of cargo. We want to test our plans and see if we did a good job.
These builders are checking out their merchandise. It's a $265,000 home in Edmond. Edmond and new homes have become very popular lately. Interest rates are driving the price of mortgage payments down, and more families are looking for a new home.
Oh, it's been fantastic. The building business in Edmond has been fantastic for the last 5 years without any question. It just continues to go. They're coming because Edmond's a family town, and for the hills and the trees and the atmosphere of a small town and growing up here, raising their families here.
The average price for a home in Edmond ranges between $89,000 and $110,000. Even though that price might seem high, it hasn't made many people balk. In fact, this home isn't expected to last long on the market, even though it's priced well over $250,000. And this trend for larger homes should continue.
I think our next 2 years will be fantastic. I think with the interest coming down like it is, that people that live in smaller homes will be buying larger homes, and so I think the larger home market is there.
So in Edmond, at least, things are looking up for the building industry. Officials are counting on that trend to spread throughout the state. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Edmond.
that 4 people in the upper management of the Bureau of Narcotics have been suspended. As far as the names go, I would rather have that come from the from the governor's office, since the suspension did come from the governor's office and not from the O.S.B.I.
This is Teresa. Yes. Agent Wellman, call station 11, please. Charles Wellman, call station 11.
There's all kinds of
So it could be,
possibilities, but it's something to do.
A little creative bookkeeping
Could be,
somewhere.
could be.
First question was, does it involve embezzlement of monies? And the answer was no. Then the second question came up was, did it involve what they refer to as buy money, which is money that's used to purchase narcotics? And the answer to that was no. But that's the information I have as of right now. So basically, you're looking at something that's centering in the main office and has to do with the fiscal management of the agency.
Last time I flew it worked fairly well, except there was a helicopter kind of buzzing in and out on us, which made it a little difficult.
This pilot is describing the problems encountered when flying over Owen Stadium on game day. He's a banner flyer. In other words, he pulls behind his plane those bright red banners used for advertising to the 70,000 people in the stadium. Lately, the FAA has cracked down on this procedure, making the pilots adhere to the regulations strictly. The reason? It's getting crowded up there. Even though there is a possibility problems could arise when pulling the banners, organizers say it's a safe business.
Well, there wasn't really any problem. What the problem lies in the people in the stands not really being able to judge distances from aircraft in the air. And consequently, you have people with questions, and the FAA is trying to satisfy those questions.
But you're confident in your business?
Well, I'm very confident. There's a track record of they've been towing banners probably since 1925, and they've only improved on the equipment and the airplanes, and pilots are certified, and the aircraft are certified, and everyone goes through inspections and checks at all phases, and there's just no problem with it.
At times, there are as many as 4 planes over Owen Stadium. The FAA will continue to watch the traffic procedures of those planes and determine if banner flying is as safe as the promoters claim. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Norman.
Division 4 of the Transportation Department has a problem. There's arsenic on their property in Perry. The cleanup of the arsenic is the culmination of a series of events that started innocently enough last February. The department bought a widely used pesticide, MSMA, that's used to kill Johnson grass in the right-of-way beside highways. The MSMA was stored on the Transportation Department's property. Pueblo Chemical had sold the pesticide to the department. The company had said it was all right to store the containers outside in the sunlight, but Pueblo Chemical was wrong. In September, department officials discovered the containers had cracked and pesticide had leaked out. The spill might have caused big problems for adjoining landowners, except for a small body of water that's been on the property since the Transportation Department has been there. This on-site retention pond was built 4 years ago to collect drainage, and it's a good thing, because much of the spilled pesticide ran off into the pond. That prevented concentrated MSMA from spreading to nearby property. The cleanup has gone pretty smoothly. Several state agencies and a private company, United States Pollution Control Incorporated, have made progress in transporting the arsenic to a disposal site at Lone Mountain. The cost? $250,000. Who's going to pay for this cleanup?
We are at this time. We hope we can recoup our losses, but that's something that'll be done at a later date. Right now, we're just trying to clean things up and make the environment safe for our neighbors and our employees.
It'll take about 2 more weeks to complete the cleanup, and that's none too soon for the Transportation Department. They never wanted to be in the waste disposal business in the first place. Bill Ross, Action 4, in Perry.
The Canadian strike has already affected about 2,500 American Chrysler employees, but in Oklahoma things don't look so bad. Here in Oklahoma City, in fact, most dealers feel they can weather this storm and maintain a strong inventory until the strike is over.
I don't think it's going to have an effect right at the moment. We've got about a 60-day supply of rear-wheel drive cars, which are what's built in Canada. I don't see where it's going to be very much problem at all. Possibly a shortage of the rear-wheel drive models, but I don't think it'll go 30 days.
About 35 to 40% of all American Chryslers come from the Canadian plants. That figure represents all of Chrysler's rear-wheel drive cars, such as the New Yorker and the Cordoba. Sales of Chryslers have been good so far this year. The 1983 models have just arrived, and the dealers are expecting big things from the new car sales. Most dealers in the area do have the 60-day surplus in case the Canadian strike continues, but many feel they won't need it, hoping the walkout will only take a month to resolve. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Jerry Oliver works 2 jobs, but was still finding it hard to make ends meet. So she decided to get someone to help her with the bills. Jerry felt the best way to solve some of the money problems was to have a roommate for splitting the cost of utilities and the $350 a month rent. She went to roommate finders to locate someone willing to move in with her. And she says now having a roommate makes a big difference.
My living condition would be terrible because right now I'm just not making the money to pay this rent, and I couldn't live in as nice of an apartment as this. I wanted somebody that I could trust, most of all, and I went to roommate finders, and I have used them before, and I, really was satisfied with them, and they've sent me somebody really great.
Oklahoma City's roommate finder simply matches people who want a roommate for various reasons, like sharing expenses or companionship. Detailed applications are filled out by those interested in living with someone else. After screening the applications, a match is made. Roommate Finders is always fighting the image of being a dating service. The company proudly displays photographs of people from 18 to 80 who they found roommates for. People of different backgrounds and sexes are becoming roommates, mainly because of hard times.
The harder times are, the more our business picks up, because there's more people that cannot, live alone. We always have, though, when the times are booming or tough, we always have people that have places.
Once paying a fee, Roommate Finders is at your service for a year in case the roommate situation doesn't work out. The company is sure there is a roommate for anyone who wants one, no matter who you are. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Southwest Oklahoma City.
Jerry, may I help you?
Mrs. Thread, may I have your number, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Further back? Well, you're asking me about 4 or 5 questions at one time. I'll tell you, it has passed. Does the commission take a look at it? In other words, they want to see the test year, a historical test period. we will be precluded from providing services between major markets like Tulsa to Oklahoma City. And those routes for long-distance calling will all go to other providers of that service. Your local telephone company will not provide it. And so those sources of very profitable business are drying up as far as the local company, Southwestern Bell, is concerned, and we have to look to basic rates for our revenue stream.
Once again today, NASA demonstrated to present and potential customers that the space shuttle works as advertised. The second of the two satellites the Columbia carried into space was deployed without a hitch.
Look at that. Beautiful, huh?
The satellite launchings have been milestones for NASA, virtually as important as proving that the shuttle can fly. Their success has added a certain flair to this mission. Here's Bill Lenore, for example, happily gobbling weightless peanuts. This came a day after Lenore practiced clinging to the shuttle interior with his toes, and naturally there was some muttering about whether old Bill had slipped a couple of rungs down the evolutionary ladder. Today, a rollover to check some instruments provided one of the most awesome sequences the shuttle has photographed.
At the end of the maneuver, it seemed like we were headed about 60 degrees up in a climb upside down. And it's a very, very weird feeling. It feels like being in an airplane up here when you do that.
Experiments and system checkouts are on the schedule for tomorrow, a spacewalk on Sunday. Dan Molina, NBC News, Houston.
Houston, are you still with us?
It was Dad's wish that he be buried here in Oklahoma, and right after he died, he was brought here for the purpose of being buried someplace in the proximity of his place of birth. We would like to abide by his wish that he be buried here, and at some point in time and under appropriate circumstances, we'll return his body to the state of Oklahoma and bury him with appropriate honors.